I think also this over-reliance on technology, this over-reliance on artificial intelligence. I think besides the spirit of adventure atrophying, I think creativity is also going to atrophy. And if we don't have any creativity, how are we going to have any innovation? How are we going to make progress? We will have no new ideas ourselves. Today I wanted to start off by telling you about one of my favorite stories when I was young. This story came out in the mid-60s, and it's called Lazy Tommy Pumpkinhead. And I guess in a sense you could kind of view it as a cautionary tale. But it's the story about a young boy who lives in an electric house. And today we would say an automated house or an automatic house. But anyways, he lives in this house and everything is automated for him. When he wakes up in the morning, instead of an alarm, he's in a bed and the bed tilts and he slides down into a shower, and there's an automatic thing that washes his hair and washes him up and brushes his teeth and everything, and then there's an automatic dryer, and then he slides down into some place that automatically dresses him, and from there he's conveyed to a dining area of some sort where he gets an automatic breakfast. He has eggs and toast and jam and hot chocolate and orange juice, I think, and all this stuff. And that's his routine. And he's called Lazy Tommy Pumpkinhead because he doesn't want to do anything himself. He relies on machines, this automated house, to do everything for him. Okay, and that's fine until one night there is a power outage. There's a storm and the power is knocked out to his house. And so, of course, living in an electric house, that doesn't work so well when you don't have electricity. So his house doesn't work. It doesn't wake him up in the morning. He sleeps right through, and he actually sleeps through for several days. And then he wakes up and he's like, I wonder what's going on, but he falls back to sleep. And eventually, after, I don't know, a week or so, something like that, the power is restored and things start kind of going back to normal. Except because it was out, the power was out for some time, his electric house is confused, and so everything malfunctions. So when the machine or the bed tips him out, somehow he lands upside down. So like when he goes into the shower, he's being showered upside down, and like the automatic toothbrush or the automatic toothbrusher is brushing his toes and trying to comb his toes with the brush, and then when the machine dresses him, he's upside down, so his head's in his pants and his legs are sticking out of his shirt. And then he's conveyed to his dining area, and his mouth is down there, and so the food is going to his toes, which don't really need food, of course. So that's a huge mess. And then, like, since the power's been out for several days, there's like a backlog of scrambled eggs and backlog of toast and backlog of bacon and jam and bananas and everything that he usually has for breakfast. So he's inundated under this mass of food and drink that it had accumulated while the power was out. And after that debacle, he kind of wakes up. He's like, basically he says to himself, maybe I shouldn't be so lazy. And I think I'll turn over a new leaf. And then the book ends. He says, I'll start a new leaf tomorrow. So as a young child, I thought that was a humorous story, and of course it was meant to be humorous, I'm sure, because it's just so ludicrous, that the whole situation. But as I said, I believe it can be viewed as a cautionary tale. So in other words, there's a danger in letting automation do everything for you. And I think we're kind of seeing this now. I mean, if you think about AI, and even before AI, we've had this attitude for a while that the computer can take care of it, the computer can do everything, right? And I think we're seeing some of the issues with that, about how many people are willing to speak up about it. I think part of it is that if you're of a younger generation, you probably might think it's no big deal, but those of us who have seen, the pre-computer world and the post-computer world, yeah, we notice a difference. So one thing that you hear people talk a lot about is brain rot. And some of it, sometimes they blame TikTok on it, or blame it on TikTok, or, different things like that. And I think that type of, short form content especially is a contributing factor. But I think if we back up a step or two, we can see, or it's not out of the realm of possibility to see how automation and, I would say, an over-reliance on computers and an over-reliance on technology has contributed to this brain rot. And they've done studies, so I've heard, about, basically people are getting more stupid because of letting the computer take care of everything. And you hear stories about, kids in school, so-called Gen Alpha, whatever, kids in school saying, why do I have to learn how to read? ChatGPT can read for me. I don't need to learn how to read. I don't need to learn math. I don't need to learn anything. I can just look it up online. Why should I bother doing all that? Part of the brain rot. It's a symptom of a greater problem. Yeah, I think we're going to see this more and more. The more we rely on technology, the more we rely on so-called artificial intelligence, we're going to see that it has this effect, increasingly so, of encouraging people to turn off their brain, encouraging people not to think. I don't have to think. The computer will do everything for me. The computer will read for me. The computer will calculate for me. The computer will tell me, what the weather's like. So it'll say, oh, you should dress this way today. The computer will do everything. You see it with cashiers in stores, especially if they're of a younger generation, a computer, post-computer generation. They don't know how to make change. They can't do it in their head. And to be fair, I've seen this before, this whole AI push. I noticed this type of thing several years ago. Like, for example, when I was teaching math and when I was tutoring math, sometimes a student would argue with me and it'd say, well, this is the right answer. It has to be the right answer because my calculator says this is the answer, so it's got to be right. And it was very difficult for me because I would try to reason with them and say, listen, just because the computer or the calculator says blah, 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 that doesn't make it right. You still have to think. You have to think about what you're telling it to do. And especially like with math and calculators, you get some kids that were just punching numbers because they see numbers in a story problem, for example, and they'd start punching, and they wouldn't think about, okay, do I have to add or take away? Do I have to multiply? Do I have to divide? They just start punching stuff up and come up with some random number. There, my calculator says 38.9. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense in the given context, or then in the context of the given problem. So yeah, this is nothing new. People have been turning their brain off for quite some time, but I think this phenomenon is accelerating or becoming more prevalent due to AI and this over-reliance on technology. And you see it also with GPS. How many people now cannot get around using a map? How many people cannot get around just by looking at the sun in the sky and knowing that it's before noon, so that means I must be heading northwest or something like that? No clue. No clue. You take away their phone, you take away their GPS, and they are utterly lost. So you hear stories about people blindly following GPS, and they end up God knows where. They don't know where they are, but they're in a totally wrong place because they just, oh, this is what the GPS told me, so I follow it. I mean, it's insane if you really stop and think about it. And I will admit that GPS, for example, can be useful if you're in an unfamiliar city and you need a specific address, like 324 Maple Street or something like that. But from going from town to town, you should be able to read a map and have some semblance of, what's the right direction. Are we heading east? Are we heading north? Are we heading south? Am I going the right way? A lot of people can't figure that out, which to me is absolutely mind-blowing. But yeah, it's this blind faith in technology, this blind faith in computers that's absolutely astonishing, and it is very dangerous, I believe. It does not bode well for us as a human race, as the human species. I think another problem is that a sad consequence rather of this over-reliance on technology is it's destroying, maybe destroying is too harsh a word, it's the spirit of adventure that we as human beings are born with. I believe that is becoming atrophied. That's probably a better way of thinking about it. It's becoming atrophied because if we're not told by AI to do this, or if we're not told by GPS, go this way, or we're not given any suggestion about, oh, if you want to do X, Y, Z, you want to propose to your girlfriend, you can ask ChatGPT how to propose to your girlfriend, crazy stuff like that. We're so unwilling to think for ourselves and try that out ourselves. So yeah, it's atrophying this spirit of adventure. We're unwilling to take chances. And if we have no spirit of adventure, we don't want to try new things without some sort of, guidance. We're not willing to step out and just say, well, let's see where this goes. There's a path in the woods. I wonder where it goes. Let's find out. How many people will do that? How many people will take the chance at anything, take the chance at a new task or a new hobby or whatever, without, first consulting AI, without first consulting technology? Sometimes I think almost it would be better if there were some electromagnetic pulse that would wipe out everything and send everybody back to the Stone Age. But I think If that were the case, then how many people would survive? I think the Amish would survive. And some indigenous peoples would survive, but yeah. But yeah, we're losing something because of this over-reliance on technology. We're losing the spirit of adventure. We're losing this willingness to take chances. We are losing independent thought or critical thinking. They're not the same, but I believe that they're closely related. There's just, yeah, people say, oh, well, this is what the computer said, this is what ChatGPT said, this is what the calculator says, so it's got to be right. Who am I to say something negative about what the computer says? The computer is smarter than I am, so I'm going to trust it. That's wrong. That's messed up on so many levels. And like I said, if that's the way the human race is going, that is not looking good. And I think it's kind of disturbing, really. I think also this over-reliance on technology, this over-reliance on artificial intelligence, I think besides the spirit of adventure atrophying, I think creativity is also going to atrophy. And if we don't have any creativity, how are we going to have any innovation? How are we going to make progress? We will have no new ideas ourselves. All our ideas are going to come from a computer or AI or whatever. But the thing is, AI, it cannot create anything by itself. It has to rely on human input. And what happens if there is no more new human input for it to use? It can't progress. I know there's a talk about, generative intelligence and all that kind of stuff. And I'll have something to say about that in a future video, about the philosophical implications of AI. Right now I'm just kind of focusing on some of the practical issues that I see with regards to AI. All the stuff that I mentioned about no critical thinking, the lack of critical thinking, or the atrophy of critical thinking, the atrophy of the spirit of adventure, the atrophy of creativity, the unwillingness to take chances. This is not good. This is not good. And sometimes I feel like a voice in the wilderness, because I know that the younger generation, they can read about it, but because they don't have that lived experience of a time before computers were ubiquitous, they lack that. So they have nothing to compare it to. And so they maybe have a mental assent that it's a problem, but they don't really comprehend, I believe, how big an issue this is. And so they maybe listen. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I think that probably the tendency for like Gen Z or Gen Alpha is to say, oh, this is just old man yelling at clouds, or old person yelling at clouds. What are you talking about? Don't worry about it. The kids will turn out fine. I don't know. I don't know. I think, it's not that we're doomed. I don't think that the coming generation is doomed, but I do think we have to be smart about how we educate the coming generations. I think we have to be smart about how we raise them, and I believe that there is value in doing things the old way, the old-fashioned methods of education, of learning, of reading, writing, of life skills or survival skills. We have to be able to do things ourselves without relying on technology. Lazy Tommy Pumpkinhead found out the hard way. Will we heed that message? Will we heed the warning? So, I hope I've given you something to think about. I'm sure that you've probably noticed some of those. Share your thoughts in the comments about what you think about this issue, about this over-reliance on technology, and this over-reliance on AI, but just technology in general. Yeah, so that's it for now. I will talk to you later. Bye.